Okay, our speaker today made it all the way from Omaha this morning. We were a little nervous, but he walked in the door there. I don't think we have to do a long introduction. Most of you know Bob Kolbe. If we can say there's a good Republican, he's one. I usually refer to them as thinking Republicans. And he certainly does that. He's a former county commissioner, he's a watch repairman, he's a outhouse excavator, and a man of many talents. And I asked him what he'd like to speak about today, and he said, I can speak on anything at the drop of the hat. So we'll just let him go where he wants to go. And he's got the hat. So, Bob.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I have a few notes. Some of you know that the Historical Society is passing out petitions or having people sign petitions to rename what was Powder House, change it back to Powder House. Okay, we'll eat it then. What was Powder House, change it back to Powder House because the city changed the name to Veterans Memorial Parkway. Two petitions are out there, one to change Powder House back to Powder House, the other is to change Russell Street Avenue to Veterans Memorial Parkway because it is between the old air base, now the airport, and Veterans Memorial Park. And the city said, well, address changes. We said no. All of the businesses on that area access and have as an address Russell Frontage Road. There is no Russell Avenue addresses, so that would be more appropriate to name it such. So, if you see someone with petitions, I hope to have some with, but I don't this afternoon, but Jim Carlson and Ron Sabi are those who are carrying petitions. That done. Please sign if you can. We'd appreciate it. Government. What is government? My way of thinking of government is it does for you what you can't do by yourself. I can't protect myself from everybody else. That's why we have police departments. That's why we have fire departments, because fighting a fire is something that needs to be done. We need protection from people who would take advantage of us, whether it's corporate or individual. Government is in the business, my way of thinking, of taking care of things that would be too costly for me to do on my own. Okay. County government, when I first went on the county commission, I think that we had a budget then about $12 million. Today it's somewhere over 65. And that's in the course of 25 years. Property taxes that we collect, and this is kind of a recap, maybe you are aware of it, maybe you aren't, but this is the way it works. Every dollar of property tax, 75 cents goes to the school. The other 25% is split up between the city and the county. Well, when you think of it, you say 75 cents out of every dollar going to the school, that's a lot of money, 75% of the property taxes. But remember, if you live in the average home and you have one child, your household property taxes at the 75% rate will pay for your student's education. Every 3 years you pay taxes is 1 year of education. 3 years of occupancy and taxes pays for 1 year of education in your public school. Then it starts to make sense why they get so much money from the property tax. The county in its efforts, it gets about 12%, 13% from the property tax. That would underwrite usually half of the budget for the county. So the 12, 13 cents out of every dollar underwrites half of the cost of running county government. When I went on the commission, about 20 to 25% of the county budget went to law enforcement. Well, that doesn't seem unreasonable. But in today's market, over 50% of all of the property taxes that the county gets go to law enforcement. So in other words, half the budget of the county is law enforcement. And that is underwritten by your property taxes. It's just going gangbusters as far as trying to underwrite the sheriff, the jail, law enforcement, which would be the judiciary, public defender, state's attorney, and juvenile detention. It's a growth industry, unfortunately. Now the city, how do they get by on their 12%? Well, what they have is they have 2 cents sales tax that helps underwrite a large share of their budget. We'll talk about that a little later. Where does the county get a lot of its money? It gets the extra money out of fees. You know, when you get, you go up to planning and zoning, or and those sorts of things, that's where the fees come in for the underwriting county government. Now, the county used to have a lot of money coming in. How many of you remember personal property tax? You know, the liar's tax. Yes. I can't remember when it went out. It was in the 70s sometime. You had to claim all the things in your house, and then you'd pay a tax on it in the end, and that tax went to the county. And I think when they cut it out, Sioux Falls had a population of about 70,000 people, and I think there were 12 TV sets in Minnehaha in Sioux Falls. The state said, and then the state said, well, this doesn't make sense. We'll just give you $500,000. We'll just ban the personal property tax, and that's yours for helping underwrite your budget. Then during the Janko years, people complained and they said, you don't need that anymore, so $500,000 was removed from the budget of the county. Hurt number one. We did get the bank franchise tax, and that was to go to county government, but it started bringing in some real money, and then the state says, we're going to cap that because you don't need all that money. Okay. We used to have the estate tax, and it was over a certain level. I don't remember, it was like $5 million. If you had a $5,100,000 estate, you paid estate tax on $100,000. The $5 million was yours free. I mean, it didn't have any tax against it. That was repealed, and most of us remember that Kermit Staggers was the big pusher for that. He said that was a death tax. Now, you know what a real everybody dies, but not everybody pays the tax. The true death tax is getting your obituary published in the Argus Leader. Nobody gets by without having to pay that one. Then this, because county government, you know, the people who elect legislators, when they elect legislators, they're smart. When they elect county officials, the same people, then they're dumb. And so county officials don't know how to budget. So in order to keep property taxes down, you can only grow your budget each year by 3%, or inflation whichever is least. So it's like running a race, everybody else is running and you're walking. And you're supposed to keep up, be that as it is. The counties are always looking for ways of trying to generate some more monies to assist them. And I brought something along. Many people have seen this kind of a thing. Just imagine that this is it's a liquor bottle, but imagine it as being filled with taxes. A liquor bottle is taxed. I mean, all the material inside is taxed. What people don't often think about is how many taxes are in this bottle. Once the alcohol is produced, the beverage, the feds get their cut. About where my fingers are. They take theirs right off the front end. So if it comes into South Dakota, what happens? The state has a tax that is paid when it goes to the distributor. About that much. So you got this much is paid in taxes. Federal, state. Now you go down to your local jar store, liquor store, or wherever you get your libations. For every $1 of sale, the state gets 4 cents of every $1 of sale. We've now consumed this much of the tax. Then our fine city gets 2 cents of every $1 of sale. Okay, that's where we're at now. So that's where the taxes on this come from, or where the taxes go. Now, what does the county get? The empty bottle. Because the arresting, the adjudicating, the sentence to serve, the prosecution, the defense, and if that person happens to be a breadwinner, you get some of the assistance, welfare assistance. There's a movement afoot this year, hopefully. The legislature will aid and abet the cause as far as helping the counties to come up with extra funds to take care of that for the law enforcement, because about 80% of all the people in the county jail have alcohol-related problems. Now that's quite a bit. One of the other things that comes to play is that we get I have to look at my empty bottle to get my bearings here. But the alcohol is a big problem. Okay, so we try to take care of it, but we can't. We don't get any funds on all of the problems that it creates. So hopefully the legislature will aid and abet the cause by passing some legislation, even if they said the sales tax on alcohol as sold, the 2 cents would go to the counties and the cities would be out of it, because they basically, if they get involved, it's an arrest. They don't have any of the problems involved with alcohol, except for the arresting. And when there is crime money coming into the city or into our area from federal grants, the grants come to the city and they agree to share some with the county. But remember, every time a policeman, a new person is put on the streets as a police person, they are going to arrest people. We want that. But when they arrest somebody, it has a big impact on the county growth. It retards it because we have to take care of all of the judicial part of it, all the adjudication. One thing that the state, I think, should be giving consideration to You know, we have rural ambulance services. Now, Hartford, for example, Hartford-Humboldt, when they started their ambulance service, who were they starting the service to benefit? It was the people in that community. They didn't start the ambulance service to serve the people on the interstate or on the state roads. They started it to help the people in the community. The gas tax that we pay, federal and state, let's use the interstate for an example. Gas tax money pays for the building of the road. Gas tax money pays for the maintenance of the road. Gas tax money mows the grass along the road. Gas tax money moves the snow on the road. Gas tax money helps to underwrite the cost of the highway patrol on these roads. Who pays for the ambulance service when one of our traveling public goes through South Dakota and there's an accident that requires an ambulance? The local community is stuck with the bill. They can send out a bill, but that doesn't mean it's going to get paid. It would seem reasonable that gas tax money would be used to help pay for the cost of responding to accidents for people on the state and federal highways. Now, the county roads, those are local residents. Township roads, those are local residents. That's why the ambulance service is there. But when you have the federal roads, we have people coming from Illinois driving through, buying the gas, paying the gas tax here in South Dakota, and if they have an accident, you would think that because they are using our roadway within our state, that the state would help underwrite the cost of maintaining ambulance service that serves the traveling public. Now, maybe the counties could use a little more assistance because they keep getting things sent down to them by the state legislature. You know, they get mandates, but no funding. I mean, how would you like if you said, well, on your house, you have to put a porch. You have to put a porch, and it's required by law, but we're not going to help you underwrite the cost of it. One of the things that relates to this is that when you have a gentleman or lady who winds up with a third DUI, state law says they are to be sentenced to the state penitentiary. They're to go to the state penitentiary. Most of the judges are sentencing people to the county jail. Now, if you get sentenced to the penitentiary for 1 year, you serve about 20-25% of the time, first offense. You go to the county jail, if the county is really up in your favor, they'll give you a 2-for-1. For every day you do your time and you're good, you get a 1 day off. So you will wind up serving at least 6 months in the county jail, which is twice as much as you would in the state penitentiary. But who pays for the cost of the incarceration? If you're in the county jail, welcome to the club. The state does not underwrite it. So there are things that need to be done for the counties. They are constitutional, and they are really in a world of hurt as far as the funding goes. Now, I've been off the county dole, so to speak, for 5 or 6 years, but it has not improved. It has not improved. So that's just a kind of a quick overview. It's something that will come to play with the legislature going into session shortly. It needs support from the local people here to urge their legislators to try to figure out a way to aid and abet the counties in their operation. They get overburdened. The county government is reactive to the laws that the state passes. The city has the good fortune of being proactive in doing things because they have extra funding that they may or may not know what to do with. I mean, you can build lots of interesting things when you have money to do things. And when you don't, you're behind the 8 ball, such as the county commission is. So, anyhow, hopefully, this is kind of a recap of the civics lesson that we all have to go through probably at least once a year. And hopefully, I have given you some points to ponder. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
I don't know if this has anything to do with what the theme of your talk was about, but is it time in South Dakota to reorganize counties? What do we have, 66 or 67 counties, and they were created over 140 years ago so that a farmer could, and a buckboard could get to the county seat and back before evening chores were complete. Does it make any sense for Lincoln and Minnehaha not to be combined? And would that help in any way in terms of what your problem is?
Yes, you have turf. And the turf for most small counties is the courthouse. And the people who work in the courthouse in the county seat are looked at as an economic incentive for the county, because you have people who live there, they work there, they get their salaries there, and they spend the money in that immediate community. Economic development. County government is economic development for some of the smaller counties. Unless the counties themselves really, really choose to be part of a consolidation program, it's just like going through consolidating schools. It's turf. How you get that accomplished, I don't know. Would it reduce cost? If Lincoln and Minnehaha County combined, and that was talked about and has been talked about for a good number of years, the roads that they have to maintain don't get less. All of the county duties don't get less if they combine. The savings might come from administration, and you wouldn't have that much of a reduction. You still have to have a head of each department. And most all of the counties, the people doing the work, are loaded fully, because I don't know of any counties that are, and I can't speak for smaller ones, but most of the counties, everybody in the county working for whatever department in the county, every one of them is busy. And most often, the department heads would be asking for more assistance. So you would save it maybe in the administrative level. You might save a little on mechanics if, like for the county roadway, if you had 20 vehicles in one county and 10 in the other, you might only need 25 or 28. There might be a little redundancy there, but the major savings probably won't come about. If that were the case, if we were doing what would be appropriate, we would only need one emergency 911 calling center for the entire state. We only have 890,000 people. There are cities with larger populations with one emergency call center. But we have area. That's what makes the difference. We don't have the population, but we have the geographic area. And you have to come to some kind of a equitable means of handling population which is small with an area that is large. And as I said, unless the individual counties say there is something to be saved and our property taxes would go down substantially, there's no real incentive to do it. And to mandate it from the top, you'll have people sitting in the county courthouses with guns saying, we won't do this. We'll call Cliven Bundy and he'll help us.
Bob, now there's one of the things that a few of us have learned about in the way that law enforcement and the judicial process happens in Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County is the city will instigate arrests and judicial actions against city residents and have them arrested, put in jail, and then they'll turn around and the city doesn't finance any part of that process. They just turn it over to the county to absorb the costs. What would you think about promoting an idea that every time the city of Sioux Falls puts somebody in jail or creates any kind of a judicial action, that the city has to pay a $200 fee or something to the county?
The city doesn't, that might be something that might work. Welfare is mandated by the state to be a county.
No,
I know, but I mean, means that the county has to handle it. When you get this sort of thing with law enforcement, the city police department technically does not have to enforce state laws. They just have to enforce city ordinances. They do the rest. But the city got rid of its jail and consolidated with the county because it was a cost-saving effort on their part. So, yes, the city has taken the tack that we'll do what we have to do, but only on the minimum, and we're not going to get involved with enlarging some of the duties that we might think that they should. Welfare, where do most of the people live? In the city, but it's a county burden. Law enforcement, what's the primary and the supreme law enforcement in the county? The sheriff, because it's constitutional. The city chief of police is not an elected official, it's an appointed official. So therefore, at one point in time, there was talk of consolidating the county sheriff's department with the city police department, having one. But the city kind of backed away from that idea when they found out that the chief law enforcement person would be elected and would be the sheriff. So it depends on what they want to talk about and how they want to deal with it. It might be something that the legislature could change if they chose to. But who has the lobbying power?
Or like what they did with Lion Park and the indigents, the people that had been drinking alcohol and so on. And the Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock sweeps that would go through downtown and get all the street people out of downtown, and they would haul them to the jail, and then they would keep them there for so many hours and release them after the bars closed. You know, this has been well known that these things are happening. And what we're doing is the city is using the jail to control populations. And there isn't any cost to them except putting somebody in a car or a paddy wagon and hauling them over to the jail.
True, and
so shouldn't they have some kind of a booking fee that the city has to pay, so they have to think twice about doing that?
I would think so, but trying to convince the city fathers that this is something that they ought to underwrite and be part of is going to take a little arm twisting. And I don't know that I see any of the arms being extended.
Well, it would have to be something that would have to come from the state level down and, you know, from the legislature and with your connections and ability to get out and speak, that'd be something to throw into this conversation.
There are many things within the community, in spite of the fact that we have good laws and most of the legislators are reasonable, that they aren't aware of the shortcomings in order for them to address them and try to change them for the benefit of the community.
No, there's a new hand in there.
This may be a rhetorical question, but, you know, a few years ago, it was proposed that this drink tax money that goes to the county. And the rhetorical question is, I don't know the answer, is how do you get the other legislators to buy into the program? Their arguments are, well, why should I have to pay, instead of $12, $6 a drink, why do I have to pay $6.30 a drink just to be in Sioux Falls to drink? You know, it's like, okay, then don't go. But how do you convince them to say, I just don't want to raise my taxes when I come from here and go to Sioux Falls to do that? And yet that almost could fund a lot of this mess.
I made this presentation that I've just done with using this bottle. The only difference in the presentation is that I have a bottle here, and when I did it 20 years ago, I had it drawn on a piece of paper in front of the legislative committee, saying the same thing. The best compliment, one of the best compliments I ever had as being a county commissioner was when Jeremiah Murphy, he was the person who was the lobbyist for the alcohol industry. He said, you know, Kolbe, yours is the only argument that makes any sense. But that's still 20 years ago, and it's, you have to get, I made a comment to some legislative body or city council. I said, you have to decide, is it a need or a want? I may want this, but the tax is a need. I don't have to have this. How many people you know go into a bar, a saloon, a restaurant, or a liquor store and say, gee, how much is that? They go and they say, green bottle, red wine, I'll take it. People don't make the consideration. If you go out, you don't have to have the drink. When you order it, you don't ask how much is it.
About a couple weeks ago, there was an article in the paper, for some of you that find this maybe hard to believe, but there was a gentleman who was ringing the bell for the Salvation Army, and he was actually had been a former resident of our facility. And I can't remember exactly the number, but it was an extraordinary amount of times that he had been arrested in the past number of years. And part of it, I believe, was because of what you're referring to. And there were a lot of people that were against the wet houses that had been constructed now. But, you know, the concept there is that, you know, you arrest them, they have to have a public defender, you have to pay for the stay at the county, you know, you have to pay for the attorneys that prosecute them, the attorneys that defend them, and the cost overall for all of that is so much greater than just giving them a place to live. And I think that's kind of the concept, you know, also on the other end of your argument.
Most of us would not think of Utah being progressive. Compared to Arizona, they are. Maybe compared to South Dakota, they are. But Public Radio had a feature here some time ago where people were being taken off the street and put into a house where they could live, and it was cheaper to put them up, give them food and shelter, and try to alter their behavior than it was to leave them on the street pick them up, take them to the emergency room, take them to jail, take them and prosecute them, and then turn them back out on the street. Minnehaha County found out that the top 10 recipients of monies from the welfare department were getting between $30,000 and $35,000 each expended on them each year, and they were no better off on December 31st than they were on the January 1st of the following year, or the next December 31st. So there is this facility now up on North Minnesota Avenue where you try to do some attitude adjustment so people can get squared away and move out into the community. $300,000 for 10 people in 1 year. Let's see, what does it cost to go to USF or Augustana for a year?
24,000, Sioux Falls College.
Okay, 24,000.
$35,000.
And we're spending 30,000 on these people, and they're no better 365 days later. So,
Well, and the beauty of the gentleman in the article, he had been sober for 7 months after graduating from the Glory House. I guess, thank you, that was kind of the,
yeah, we have to pay a little more attention to those people on the floor rather than those people who can touch the ceiling.